Good afternoon, everybody. Let's get started with class for the night. Let me get sharing my screen with you. Hope everyone's doing good. I have been working on getting assignments graded and updated. I can only update the things that you do on McGraw-Hill once a week, once everybody's done the assignments. And so I usually try to wait until Saturday, Sunday night to make sure everyone has done their assignments, because I have to sync the book and it messes it up if everyone hasn't done the assignment. So I haven't synced the book for this week. So if you've done something and it's not showing up yet, it's a good possibility I just haven't synced the two grade books together. So I do plan on doing that tonight after class. If you haven't done an assignment and something happened and you're still needing to get that in there, please email me so I can see if I can make the exception. If you've been down with the flu or something like that, if you can provide proof, we may be able to work with you. I just want to make sure that I want everyone to leave the class with a good grade, and I want you to be able to come to me if you are having issues with getting something in. And it's easier if I know up front than trying to track you down later to see what happens. So if you have some zeros or if you haven't done some assignments, get with me. Let's work through this. We have the rest of this upcoming week to get through that, get it all sorted out. So definitely reach out to me, and let's get that fixed. We have this last week of discussions. So discussion is due by Tuesday, and then I'll log attendance for Tuesday. Thursday, I'll log attendance. You have to do your peer post, 2 peer posts by Thursday. Friday, you have to turn in the live lecture summary. So if you're watching this, the 6 of you that are here right now do not have to do a summary, but everyone else who's watching this on YouTube as a recording coming back, you need to do your 200-word summary. I don't know if I had told you, but it actually is 250, but I found out after the class started, so I didn't change that. So if you do have me in a future class, it will be 250-word summary. I do count the words and not physically count them. I copy what you type, I paste it in Word and do a word count. So if you're doing 124, I'm going to dock you on that summary. So make sure that you are doing at least 200. I don't care if it's 200 on the dot. Just make sure that you are meeting that requirement. Make sure that you're following on all the rules. If it's requiring APA, if it's requiring referencing, because I do document all of that too. Last but not least, this week you have the final quiz, so make sure that you get that in there and take care of that. You have three chapters for this week, so nothing too big. And that's about it. Let's get started on tonight's 3 chapters. So the first chapter that we learned about tonight was chapter 24, and I don't know why we're on the screen, my apologies. And someone just come online, so I'm writing them down. So chapter 24. Chapter 24 is about real and personal property. And so we all have real or personal property. So this is a chapter that maybe helps you learn a little bit about the possessions that you have. The characteristics of property. Property should be viewed broadly because it also includes tangible goods such as automobiles, furniture, clothing, and even pets. Intangible possessions include patents, rights to drill for oil on someone else's land, and copyrights of creative works such as books. These intangible possessions are also property. And this week, and I know it's really boring for you guys, I do have quite a bit of reading back to you guys. I do have a video that's kind of interesting, and then I have a couple of stories to share. And I hate for our sessions to be a lot of reading, but the PowerPoints are really good. They have a lot of good information and a lot of good examples. So I do anticipate reading a lot of that tonight, so I apologize in advance. So more about property. Consequently, the broad term property includes, in addition to land, both tangible and intangible personal property. Distinction between real and personal property. So real property compromises land and everything attached to the land. So I have, on my property, I have a building that we have all of our stuff in, so that would be part of that. Example, minerals such oil, iron ore, and other permanent additions to the land such as homes, buildings, and trees. That's real property. Personal property includes all property other than real property, both tangible and intangible. And it gets really interesting here in just a minute, and it talks about how once grain is growing on the property versus once it's cut off the property, how that changes in the types of property. So we'll get that in a second. Personal property includes the tangible personal property, furniture, clothing, and books, and pets. Intangible personal property is patents, copyrights, goodwill, trademarks, and service marks. So if you have, if you're a photographer and you have that watermark, that you put on your photos, that's an intangible mark. That's yours, and that's your way of saying this is mine, and I don't want people to take this or use it elsewhere. Real and personal property can become personal property. So here's where it talks about the grain, because real property consists of land and things permanently attached to it. If it follows logically that when things are removed from real property, they become personal property, and that's where it talks about once the grain is cut and harvested, it becomes personal property. It's no longer real property. It's no longer attached to the land. So personal property can become real property. Personal property such as trees or shrubbery purchased at a nursery become real property when they are planted. So if I go to Home Depot and I buy a couple of shrubs, they are personal property, but once they are affixed to my land, they become real property. Similarly, personal property such as lumber, bricks become real property when they are used to erect a building on real property. So same scenario, go to Home Depot, go buy some bricks, but once it's attached to that home, it becomes real property. Acquiring title to personal property. Title to personal property is the actual ownership of property, not just the evidence of ownership, such as a certificate of title. And if you remember earlier in one of the weeks, I think it may have been last week, we talked about how when doing loans, there's a title for the boat, a title for the motor, and a title for the trailer generally, but sometimes you have to get a CC or you have to get a certificate of title. So that kind of touches on that. Finding lost personal property. The finder of lost personal property holds in trust that is in safekeeping, at least for a time, for the real owner. The finder is a custodian acting for the true owner. The finder of lost property has ownership rights superior to everyone except the true owner. And now that we're into this finding lost property, we're going to kind of skip over it because it's real wordy, and if you read through the chapter, it's pretty basic. So I'm going to skip over that. Hold on, let's see. This talks about lost property, mislaid property. I just felt like the chapter kind of went on and on about that. See more property found in public versus private places. The thing I did find interesting about this, is it on here? Let me look. It talks about here, an owner of property that is not open to public is presumed to possess both place itself and whatever it contains. Here we go. In an area that is open to public, however, the finder is more likely to gain ownership of a found object than its owner of the land. So, I mean, I guess a good example would be like if you went to the Tulsa State Fair and you found something there, it's more likely to become your property in the long run if you follow everything you're supposed to do than the landowner's property. So that's what that means, and I kind of found that interesting when I came across that. The other chapters have a lot more interesting things that we're going to talk about when we get to them. So we're not going to stay on this chapter 24 too long. Many states have statutes that require the finder of lost or mislaid property to notify a specific government official who maintains records of the property found. If by the end of a period of the time set by statute, the true owner does not claim the property, title to such property is transferred to the finder. The true owner does not come, if the true owner does not come forward and the finder does not wish to claim the ownership, title of the property transfers to the state after the period of time specific in the statute. And not really related to this, but kind of, if you've ever found a pet and try go pick up a pet that is found wandering around in Tulsa and put that on Facebook and say, hey, found this pet earlier today, looking for a good home for them, and see what kind of attack you get from other people on Facebook, because there's rules and there's laws about finding that pet, and you have to make a reasonable gesture to find the owner of that pet. So just go on and look at a post of a lost dog on Facebook and see if find one where someone's trying to rehome an animal that was found earlier in the day, and it's interesting to watch and read. Gifts. So the voluntary transfer of property by one person to another without consideration or payment. And what consideration is if it's payments, so without funds of any kind. While gift giving is a common act, it takes an added dimension when viewed from a legal standpoint. 3 requirements which must be met for property to be transferred as a gift. The donor, the person giving the gift, must intend to make a gift. The gift or a written statement of the donor's intention must actually be delivered to the donee, the person who receives the gift. And the donee must accept the gift. Once these 3 requirements are met, the donor cannot rescind the gift. Let's see. So I think there's more at the end of this chapter. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of this chapter I really wanted to touch on tonight. Hopefully you're reading through your chapters. It covers it really good in there, and it's just kind of wordy on the slides. Certain types of property, businesses, boats, cars, and planes cannot be divided among the owners. So you can't say, hey, I'm selling this car and it's 60% yours, 40% yours, but you can have a joint tenancy. So my husband and I have cars together where we're both on the title and we own it jointly. So it's ours. It's not, it's not 60% mine, 40% his. It's ours. It has a joint tenancy. So when 2 or more persons own equal shares of the property, if the death of one person happens, it transfers to the other person. So we have our SUV out in the car. So if I were to pass away, we have the joint tenancy on that title. So it would become his vehicle. It's not going to be his and nobody's or someone's to come in and take my place unless he puts that person on the title, but the ownership just becomes his. In a joint tenancy, the owners are said to have an undivided interest. Again, he doesn't have 70 and I have 30 or 60-40. It's equal. It's our vehicle. So each owner can claim ownership of the entire estate subject to the same right of the other joint tenants. So something interesting about this, when I was in banking, we would draw up title. We would have titles. And so if you were going to sell your vehicle in the state of Oklahoma, you have to have a notary on that title. If it's a state of Oklahoma title. So if the title of a vehicle reads Sonia and Daniel Richardson, and it just says and, it's going to require both of our signatures on it because the law requires an and means both. If it says Sonia and or Daniel Richardson, just one of us is going to have to sign that title to sell it. So that's something to think about whenever you are doing a loan, is if you want to make it where maybe if I were a parent and I was going to co-sign for my child, I may want to make it where it's Sonia and my child's name. That way they can't sell that car if I need them to have it for a specific reason. If I really didn't care if they sold it one day, I was just co-signing and hey, whatever, you could put Sonia and or child's name That way it's easier to sell later on, and it doesn't require both of you to get that notary. So that's one instance I can think of in real life where joint tenancies may become an issue if it would be in the title work. Now, in other states like Kansas, we bought a truck in Kansas this past year. It does not require a notary for signing a title, so maybe they don't have as many issues with that as we do here in Oklahoma. Multiple ownerships continued. So tenancy by the entirety, a form of joint ownership of property by husband and wife in which both have the right to the entire property, and upon the death of one, the other one has title, the right of survivorship. Back to the car, kind of. Tenancy in common, a form of joint ownership of property by two or more persons. The ownership interest of any one of the owners can be sold, transferred, or inherited. So when I read this, I think of partnerships in a business where or ownership part. Everyone has a part ownership of the business. So I'm trying to think of a good example. Just say there were 6 owners in Quick Trip in Tulsa, and they all owned a portion of it, and someone who wanted to sell part of their ownership, they could sell it to the other owners or to someone else without the approval of anyone else. They're just selling their share. The distinction of tenancy in common is that the owner's interest does not pass to the persons who share ownership at the time of his or her death. Rather, the interest of the tenant in common passes to that person's heirs. So what this is saying is, so maybe I'm one of those owners of the Quick Trip and I pass away. The other 5 owners are not going to get my part of the ownership. My family would. So my husband, my kids, or something like that. Let's see. Community property. Some states have enacted statutes that provide that property acquired by either one of the spouses during a marriage in the community property of both husband and wife, the property acquired belongs to both parties. So say I owned this home before I got married. We got married. He moves in. Now we both own the property, though only my name may be on the title or the deed. Statutes in these states vary in the determination of what happens to the property at the time of death or in the case of divorce. Generally, the law provides that property owned by either party before the marriage or property received as gifts or inheritance by the party during the marriage remains the property of the individual and does not become community property. So real property, unlike most forms of personal property, land is limited, unique, and no 2 pieces of land are the same. So I live directly next to 2 neighbors out in the middle of the country, and our land shape is the same, but they aren't the same because there's different things below the earth, on top of the earth. We have a pond, so it's not the same, though it may be the same shape. Land also includes rights to minerals such as oil, coal, iron, ore, except in states where the state retains an interest in certain minerals. So you've probably heard of people saying they have the mineral rights to property. My family has some mineral rights down in Okfuskee County, and so I heard that a lot growing up, and always talking about selling the mineral rights. Sometimes you'll see it where someone's selling the land and the mineral rights all at the same time. So I had mentioned earlier the lands are different because of what's below the property and what's above it. So the limit of where my property ends is as far down as you can go and as up as high as it's both ways. So it explains it here better in a minute. Buildings and fixtures on real property. These are structures built on land and can be almost any building permanently placed or constructed on or beneath the surface of the land. And you notice it says or beneath, so we have a storm shelter outside. It's beneath the land, so that would be part of that. When personal property is added to land or to buildings in such a way that they become a part of these, they are known as fixtures. And I think if the law didn't consider things beneath the land, like the storm shelters, part of real property, I think it would be really hard to get. And a lot of my experience comes from my business experience with property and stuff comes with working in banking. And I think it would be really hard to get a loan on this type of structure because if it wasn't considered a real property, because you have to have something to file a lien against or some kind of security there. So it's nice that they included that in the in the description. Rights in land other than ownership. Let's see. This talks about the air rights that I was saying. The right to build on or over the land is known as air rights. Air rights are of particular significance in crowded urban areas where the right to erect a building over some others use the land. Some other use of the land might be sold. It talks about that better here in a second, I think. Now, when we bought our property, I said earlier that we live out in the middle of the country, and so the best way, so we live between 2-mile roads, and we own a few acres off of the road, and behind us someone owns this property, and it's 7 or 8 acres, I don't remember, it's not a whole lot, but there's no way for them to get to the property behind us, directly behind us. So when we moved in here, we found out that we have what's called an easement on our property. And what that is our driveway stops at our house, but the easement for the property owner behind us says that our driveway continues and they can utilize that land between, they can use our driveway and the land between our driveway and their property to access their property because it's what you call landlocked. So that easement was part of the property whenever we bought it. And it's kind of frustrating because they pretty much get to use your property anytime you want. And unfortunately, I have people who own the people who owned the property when we moved in for the first 10 years here, the people who owned it would take their horse trailers up and down our yard, and there really wasn't anything we could do about it. If it was muddy or whatever, they got stuck out in our yard because, I mean, there's an easement on it. They have a right or interest in the land granted to them. I couldn't do anything about it. Fortunately, since we've moved in back in 2006, our neighbor to the east has bought the property behind us. And the people who did own the property behind us wanted to sell it to us, but we never took interest in that. So now it's no longer landlocked. The people who live next to us also own the land behind us. So now they have like a big L shape, but the easement is still there. And so we're currently working through this right now where we have to sign off and agree to this easement, though our neighbor never has plans to use it. So easements are interesting if you've ever got to deal with them. And I kind of got thrown in on learning what they were. The distinction between easement and other real property rights is that easements run with the land. That is, they cannot be sold or transferred once they are recorded. So it's there. The right granted to a public utility company, this is a different type of easement, but it's pretty much the same thing. An easement for a utility company says that they can come on the property in a specific area anytime they need to maintain the electrical equipment, telephone lines, things like that. So there's utility easements as well, but the easement that I have on my land is not a utility easement. It's an easement for the neighbors. Luckily, they don't live back there. They just had some horses back there, so we didn't have to deal with them too often, but it was still a pain. Rights in land other than ownership, profits, a right to enter another person's land and remove some portion of the land or its natural resources. So it gives a good example here. The right granted to a timber company to harvest trees from a particular property. Let's see. We're getting pretty close to the end of this chapter, and my computer froze. I hate to stay on this chapter too long and not get to talk about, there we go, it's unlocking or unfreezing the rest of the chapters. So I want to move on to chapter 25, and I need to, if you click on this, it's not working. I need to update that. I'll try to do that tonight, if not tomorrow. But I do have 25 here for the PowerPoint. If for some reason I don't get it updated and you're needing it soon, email me. I'll email it back out to you, but I'll get it updated as soon as I can. This talks about chapter 25. I can't even think of the word that it uses. Bailments. I knew it started with a B. So bailments. What is a bailment? And we're still talking about property here. So a bailment is a transaction in which the owner of tangible personal property transfers the property to another party while still retaining ownership of such. That's a lot to say. So what's an example? Taking clothes to a dry cleaner transfers possession but not ownership or title of the clothes. So though you're dropping them off for a short period of time and it's in their care, it's still your property. Let's go to the next slide. Characteristics of bailments. Bailments allow owners of personal property to transfer possession of it to another for the following 6 purposes. So the 6 purposes are sale, transportation, repair of service, rental, storage, and security for a loan. Excuse me. So it's pretty simple. Manufacturer ships goods to a retailer or either sell or return them, known as consignment. So we talked about consignment shops last week about I know that we have Just Between Friends that's coming open. I think I talked a little bit about Plato's Closet. Transportation. Businesses hire a transporter of goods, a truck, line, or rail, an air carrier to ship goods. So we have UPS, FedEx. I work with one company that's in Guam, so we actually get to ship goods that way. So we're using that kind of transportation with the company I'm with right now. Repair or service. Motorist leaves a car or service at a station for an oil change. Earlier, it gave the example of leaving your dry cleaning, so that would be a service. Rental. Travelers rent car from a rental company or skis from a lodge. Storage. Company stores goods in warehouse, diner, places coat in a check room, or driver leaves a car in a parking lot. So these are all examples. Security for a loan. Borrower leaves goods with a lender until loan is paid. And that wouldn't be, so that's more like a pawn shop. You would leave like a ring, a gun, a musical instrument there as security. And it wouldn't be anything like, in Oklahoma, we're not a title holding state, so you're not leaving a title for your car at the bank or wherever to do your loan. So they're not holding that title there. They're just putting a lien on your property, your personal property. So when you say security for a loan, leaving goods with the lender, I would say it's more so of a pawn shop in that instance, but not always, and not in all states. Bailment created by a possession of goods. Actual ownership of goods not necessary to create bailment. Anyone in possession of goods can create the bailment relationship and become a bailer, a borrower, a finder, even a thief. Let's see. I'm looking. We're at 8:30 and we're not quite halfway through all the slides. So I'm trying to skip ahead to some things that I really wanted to talk about. Termination of bailments. If a bailment is for a specific term, the bailment ends when the term lapses. In other cases, the bailment is terminated when its purpose is satisfied, when the parties mutually agree to end it, when either party demands to end it, or if the bailee acts inconsistently with the terms of the bailment. In all bailments, bailee has at least the minimum duty of care to ensure the safety of bailer's property. So if I'm leaving my my musical instrument at a pawn shop, I should be able to expect that they're going to take care of my property, because though they are loaning me money on it, it is still my property until I don't follow through on these items. If unless we terminate, it's still my property, and so I should have reasonable reason to believe that they'll take care of the property. Level of care varies depending on the type of bailment. So maybe if I'm taking a ring to a pawn shop, they're going to put it under lock and key and in a safe. But if it's my car, it's probably going to be in their car lot. It just depends on what type of bailment is used. Bailments often classified into 4 categories. Bailments for sole benefit of bailee, borrowing article, a calculator from a friend. Bailments for sole benefit of the bailer, agreeing to store a friend's car in your garage while friend is away. Bailments for benefiting both of parties, the bailee and the bailer, leaving a car within tenant and parking garage, called mutual benefit bailment. And constructive bailment, when goods, example, an umbrella, thrust upon you by a person who accidentally leaves property behind in your home. So I'm sure we've all had that happen where someone comes and visits and they leave something behind. So now you have bailments that you have to take care of until you can get it back to the owner. Let's see if we can scroll through this. Mutual benefit bailments. Most common bailments is the kind in which consideration is present. And again, consideration would be an item. Consideration is exchanged of promises by parties to agreement to each give up something of value they have a right to keep or to do something they are not otherwise required to do. And my computer froze up again. There we go. Let's see. I may be done with this chapter. Hotel bailments. A bailment relationship exists, and it keeps giving it gives really good examples. If you want to read through these PowerPoints out, like I said, I need to update that. But a bailment relationship exists when a guest or bailer and a hotel keeper, a bailee, with regard to the guest property that is specifically placed in the care of the hotel keeper. A hotel keeper, innkeeper, is the business of offering lodging or temporary shelter in transients. A transient is a guest whose stay is relatively uncertain, a day, a week, a month, or more. So bailments, there's just a huge amount of examples of bailments. So let's get back over to here and hit up chapter 28, I think it is. Go back to the chapters. All right, yeah, chapter 28. And so this is the chapter where I have the video to show you guys. And it's nothing spectacular. It's a quick little short film, but it's interesting. So we'll get to it here in a second. So definition of intellectual property. Individuals and businesses own both real and personal property. Most people think of property as including only tangible items such as land and buildings, real property, automobiles, clothing, and cash, personal property. Another form of personal property includes knowledge, ways of doing things, and expressions and ideas. So earlier when I talked about the watermark on photography, that's someone's expressions, their ideas. And if you've ever tried to, I think it's Facebook, sometimes whenever you record a song and you try to upload that video, it'll tell you, hey, you don't have rights to this music, and it won't allow you to upload it. I'm trying to think if it was Facebook or another program that was really bad about catching the music in the background. Let's see. I guess everyone's having trouble with the audio. Give me just a second. Let me pause this for a second and see if I can fix the audio. I'll switch internets. Maybe I have 2 internets available to me at home. Hold on. Okay, so we're back. I switched internets. Someone said it was better, said they can hear and see. So hopefully at least the recording is good. I apologize for all of the people here live. Hopefully this will help fix that situation. I'll try to hurry it up since we're cutting in and out and it's been difficult. And my apologies. So let's get back to where we were. Intellectual property. So trade secrets. Trade secrets is a specialized knowledge associated with a particular business. It includes information gained during employment about such matters as manufacturing processes, practices, devices, customer list, and other confidential information that, in the hands of a competitor, would place the firm at serious disadvantage. When trade secrets are made public, the firm loses the advantage it had while the secrets were undisclosed. So here in a second, I'm going to show you a video about the trade secrets. And I did have an instance where I dealt with this in work, where we had someone that worked with us in the banking world who was leaving as a loan officer to go in and start doing financial business elsewhere. And after he left, he had taken some of the phone numbers of our customers and started calling them and trying to bring them over. Well, of course, we caught wind of it and we had to send a cease and desist order to this past employee to get him to stop taking our customers and trying to take our business away, because he had access to that information and he took it with him. Making sure that I still have everyone here. Give me a second. After the computer did that weird thing. Okay. When trade secrets are made public, it makes it easier for people to mimic the trade secret. So the instance I'm going to give you on the video here in a minute is the KFC secret recipe for their chicken. And if or when that secret gets out, it's going to make it where they don't have everyone can make that special recipe. So it's really important to KFC to keep that under wraps, and we'll cover that more in a second. Actually, I guess we'll cover it now. So here is this video. Let's see. Hopefully you can hear it.
For Kentucky Fried Chicken.
There's no sound on the video.
Do what?
There's no sound on the video for us.
Of course there's not. Okay, so I'm going to post the video. I turned the volume up and I can't believe it didn't show. So that's my first time to try to show a video. Obviously it doesn't work. Let's do this. It's a quick 1-minute video, and it pretty much just says, and I'm sorry that you can't hear it. You would think you could hear my speakers and my microphone. Before I move on, so when someone asks a question, can everybody else hear it? So someone just told me, hey, we can't hear the video. I heard them say that. Did everyone else? You can hear that, but you can't hear the video? Okay. So all it's pretty much saying was that the secret recipe was under lock and key, and they were moving it. And it took all of those. You saw the cops and everything, and they're moving that property. And it's just talking about how it's important to keep that under lock and key, and only 2 people have access to the trade secrets, and we don't even know who has access to it at any given time, and that the recipe was made in different spots. So there's the 11 herbs and spices, and they're mixed in different locations and then come together elsewhere, so nobody knows the full recipe. So obviously that doesn't work, and I know now, and I just won't show videos again. Lesson learned. And I apologize. So trade secrets, it's important to keep those secret. Tonight's just kind of been a bomb for us, the internet not working and then the sound not working, so that's great. Protecting trade secrets, it talks about that on the video that you saw but did not hear. And it's not part of the assignment or anything. I just thought it'd be interesting to see it because I had seen it once in school, and I stuck with me about how hard KFC worked to keep their secrets under wraps and from getting out. So that's the only reason I wanted to show that. I'm getting on my end that y'all are still having internet problems. That maybe my internet's running slow, and I don't know if it's just, I mean, both of my internets are running slow, so I don't know if it's just a slow internet night, but I'm going to go ahead. I know it's a little early. We still have a little bit more of this chapter. You do have access to this chapter on online. So just finish looking through the slides. I hate that the sound's cutting in and out. I hate that we're having issues. I did try a different spot in the house tonight. Maybe that's part of it. I'll get it worked out before my next class. I apologize. Enjoy your last week in business law. I shouldn't have any of you for this next class because I'm teaching another class that some of you have most of you had already probably taken. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be available by email. I don't have anything important going on this week. Make sure you're finishing up all your assignments. Again, get with me if you're having issues and getting your homework complete. I think everyone except one person I've been working with has most, if not all, of their assignments up to date. I just need to take your McGraw-Hill and move them over. Again, I apologize for the intermittent sound that you guys live are hearing. If you're hearing this recorded, make sure that you get your 200 words in by Friday. And I hope all of you have a great week. I'm sorry for all the glitches and the issues that we had tonight. Don't feel obligated to watch the Colonel Sanders video, the KFC video. I pretty much told you everything that happened on it. It's just a quick 1-minute video. And anyway, have a good week. Let me know if you have any questions. And again, I apologize for all the problems we had tonight. I'm going to stay on for everyone that's live. If you have a question, you can ask me. So I let everybody go. I just wanted to come back on and let you know that I appreciate everyone for this last 3 weeks going into our 4th and final week. So I won't see you guys again live. So I really hate that tonight had so many issues. After I stopped recording, they came back and did say that they were having a hard time hearing me again. I do all my recordings from home, and I recently had an issue where they said that they had fixed it with the internet company, so maybe they're having their problems again tonight. So I do apologize for cutting it short tonight. Read over your PowerPoints. Let me know if you have any questions, and it's been great having you guys in class. Have a great week and talk to you soon.